Color palettes are used by painters, interior designers, and makeup artists to beautify our world. But colors are also used to provide safety information like the red, yellow, and green of a stoplight, or in our engineering world, the colors on a tower light that indicate the operating status of a piece of manufacturing equipment. As we will learn today, colors, in combination with mechanical keying, can also provide functional information to optimize your electronics cable assembly. Welcome to Tech Chat, sponsored by Mouser Electronics, where we chat with engineering experts about the latest technical innovations that are shaping and reshaping our world. Today, we welcome Elena Duggar, Global Product Supervisor for Power and Signal Solutions at Molex. Welcome to Tech Chat, Elena.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. So what are we going to be learning about today?
Well, at Molex, we've been very busy innovating, as we do, and we've been focusing on a few hot trends. So today we're going to focus on connector, color, and mechanical keying and ergonomics.
I know for me, it helps to clearly understand the problems first before we start talking about new solutions. So can you provide some background for us?
Absolutely. Our customer challenges are our challenges, and we face them head on. Keeping operators safe is essential to the well-being of your company and work environment. So when we're considering features of our connectors, improved operator safety is paramount in our decision-making process. In addition to safety, we know how important operator efficiency is to our customers' output, which means assembly needs to be mistake-proof. If we can achieve that, our customers will see quality improvements and less service calls, which is a win-win for everybody. Customers are seeking more robust feature-rich connectors, but inevitably real estate is getting smaller, which can pose challenges. So we've keyed in on the answer with color mechanically keyed connectors. They virtually eliminate misalignment, which removes errors associated with improper installation. Additionally, we offer a wide range of color housings, which allows the operator to make a quick identification for proper mating and faster assembly.
Now, for mechanical keyed, is that old version of the USB that looked like a trapezoid with one wide side and one narrow side, would that be considered an example of a mechanical keyed connector?
You're exactly right. The idea there is that you could only plug it in one way, and that's definitely done by design. We want to make sure that you cannot put that in the wrong way for safety, for speed of assembly. So you hit the nail on the head with that observation.
And I'm guessing that that's kind of an example of maybe not the best one from a assembly use, because invariably it seemed like you had it the wrong way and it's small and you couldn't see it. So you're looking at making this even easier to see and getting it done right the first time. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So what are the benefits of color mechanically keyed connectors? Well, first let's discuss the difference of color keyed versus mechanically keyed. Color keyed connectors are just that. The housings are different color for a quick visual identification. Red goes with red, yellow goes with yellow. However, they aren't mechanically keyed, so red could actually go with yellow. They aren't mechanically keyed, therefore they aren't 100% error-proof. With mechanically keyed, on the other hand, it's keyed or polarized in such a way that connectors can only be mated to one mate in one orientation. It truly is 100% error-proof. The key benefit to this is the reduction of on-the-job repetitive motion injuries can make operators and OSHA much happier when you're eliminating all those repetitive motions. So when we talk error-proof, we're trying to prevent two things: cross-mating and mismating. Cross-mating is when two connector halves from different manufacturers are mated, and mismating are when two connector halves from the same manufacturer are incorrectly mated. What you're seeing here are two connectors from Molex, actually the same product family, but they are mechanically keyed, so they can only go with the proper half. So in this case, the black goes with black, natural goes with natural. This is a really popular product line due to this color mechanically keyed. Very quick for an operator to see that the black goes with black, natural goes with natural, and there's no mistake about it. You cannot mismate these two.
That's really interesting. I'd heard both of those terms many times before, but I'd never heard the explanation of the difference between cross-mating and mismating. I thought they were interchangeable.
Yeah, and a lot of people make that same mistake, and it is important. Oftentimes, customers will want to use different manufacturers, and oftentimes with product specs, we're just only testing products with our own connectors. And so that is something to pay attention to, is making sure that you're using the connectors from a manufacturer. And again, with this color mechanical keyed, you're making sure, or really it's error proof in and of itself. So it's a beautiful feature to have. Additional challenges that we see are that designs are often done in one location or country and manufacturing done in another location or country. Thus, labels can be in different languages or get worn off in transit. So it's critical that connectors can quickly and properly mate to avoid cross-mating and mismating like we discussed. And again, when you have the design with the keyed, you're just going to be more efficient. And again, you're going to avoid any possibility of cross-mating and mismating, which, as we discussed, could really have some undesirable consequences.
And I would imagine in a lot of these assemblies, the connection is the very poor visibility to it, or even a blind connection sometimes. So making sure that you can only get one connection into that's the right plug is really going to be important in those things where you don't have good visibility of the connection you're making.
Absolutely. You hit it. So why is cross-mating an issue? Well, there's a lot of things that could happen. It could lead to loss of signal or short-circuiting, mechanical failure. And additionally, operators and customers can see an increase in production costs, lost time in troubleshooting, and user safety. So the implications could be quite troubling.
Yeah, you mentioned that short circuiting is a great example in that you can have really expensive electronic systems on either end of these cables and connectors, which if you damage those, that's a pretty expensive loss.
Absolutely. It could be the cost implication, the safety. God forbid you have a fire or some type of explosion. So it's definitely not something to take lightly.
Do you think designers often underestimate the potential risks and costs when selecting connectors? Basically, they default to the lowest cost or their most familiar solution rather than really thinking about those long-term risks and costs?
I do think sometimes that could be the case where connectors they could have been using year after year, or it's just something that could be a couple cents and they just throw it on the bill of materials. And it could be that they're not thinking of these potential risks that could occur. So I think, yes, it could be something that is not given as much thought of the potential hazards, or even for those operators that are mating and unmating thousands of times a day. So yeah, I do think that there are a lot of implications that could be overlooked, by an engineer who's maybe not relating to what's happening on the manufacturing floor. Absolutely.
Yeah. And even thinking upstream a little bit, I know that I really appreciate presentations like this is it gives information to engineers that may intuitively understand these risks and the cost, but it gives them the language to help talk to, say, buyers who are really focused on saving those pennies per assembly. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk about these things and really equipping engineers to do their job better.
Well, absolutely. And I do think that it's important for us to do our job in educating not just engineers, but also whether it's purchasing or quality, because all of these things, you could try to save a few pennies in the front end, but what might it cost you in quality and returns in the back end? So it is really important to consider these things early on so you're not having issues, lost time, troubleshooting, or worse, injury, something that could be catastrophic. So there are a lot of things to think about. And if it means spending a few extra pennies to have features that could prevent disaster, it's pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So with color mechanically keyed connectors, we allow our customers increased design flexibility with a compact design, ribs between each mated housing to prevent arcing, polarization keys as we discussed, positive lock housings to ensure connectors will not disengage, terminal position assurance retainers or TPAs, and these are really to ensure that terminals don't back out. And then we also have halogen-free and glow wire compatible materials as well.
So can you help me understand the difference between a positive lock housing and a terminal position assurance retainers? Because those kind of sound like the same thing to me.
Yeah, it could be confusing. Lots of terminology being thrown out here. So positive lock is when you're mating a plug and receptacle together, and sometimes you see the latch And you, when they come together, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but oftentimes there's a latch. When they engage, you'll hear a little click. So that's a latch. It really just holds the two connectors together because, whether you're with an application that has some vibration, little movement, you want to make sure those connectors are fully engaged and cannot come apart. So that's where those positive lock housings are really key. Whereas a terminal position assurance, we call them TPAs for short. In this picture, it's those little gray pieces you can see. Those are there to ensure that those terminals are seated in place. It's kind of like a seat belt, make sure you stay in your seat. The TPA is there to make sure those terminals do not back out. And if you can picture on a loud, floor where these operators are inserting terminals all day, they're like, did I hear that click? I'm not 100% sure. So the terminal position assurance retainers just help those operators know when that TPA is securely clicked on, those TPAs aren't going anywhere. So it's like an insurance policy to say, my terminals are in, no matter what happens. If there's a little vibration or movement, those terminals are not going to back out. So it's a security feature. It's an insurance policy. They might cost a couple pennies. So sometimes, you might have buyers that don't want to spend a couple extra pennies. But again, that's another insurance policy to say, this is needed. This is going to keep those terminals in, and we're not going to get product back for, any failures. So it's a pretty important little piece of plastic, I would say.
Thanks. That was a helpful explanation.
Sure, absolutely. So we have many color mechanically keyed offerings currently available and in development. We've got our MiniFit product line, which has been around for a very long time. Everyone tends to be pretty familiar with our MiniFit product line. There's a little star next to it because MiniFit is actually just color keyed, meaning it's simply just a visual identification system. They're just colored. They aren't mechanically keyed. So as I mentioned earlier, you go red with red, yellow with yellow, blue with blue. However, they could be mated red with yellow, blue with red. So it's not 100% error proof. And then we've got CP, NanoFit, UltraFit, MicroFit Plus, and Scuba. Those are all color and mechanically keyed. So it's like the best of both worlds, easy to identify very quickly, and then just 100% error proof. You can only mate them with the proper half, truly error proof. And then we have in development, we've got MegaFit and then NanoFit Versacolors. So we're really taking it seriously. We find that this is such a beneficial feature to have, again, whether it's, for efficiency, safety. There's just endless reasons to have color mechanically keyed products in your toolbox.
So, Elena, earlier in the presentation, you mentioned improved operator safety and efficiency. Can you tell us some more about those topics?
Absolutely. So a big push that we're seeing is this trend towards ergonomics. Ergonomics is the science and practice of designing jobs and workplaces to match the capabilities and limitations of the human body. It optimizes design factors to help maximize productivity by minimizing operator fatigue and discomfort. Actually, the most common workplace injury related to poor ergonomics is carpal tunnel, which, when the operator gets a pinched nerve in the wrist, it causes numbness and tingling in the hands, which is a repetitive motion injury. But making some small ergonomic changes, such as mechanically keyed connectors or connectors with reduced mating forces, can really help to reduce that repetitive motion and thus reduce instances of carpal tunnel and injuries in the workplace. So how do we consider ergonomics in connector design? One of the things we're really looking at is reducing mating forces or the force that's required to mate connections, which can really help reduce the strain on operators, lowers fatigue, reduces the risk of injury. Ways we can do that is ensuring that the houses are pre-aligned ahead of contact mating and the lead-in is supported for contacts. These considerations help reduce any potential interference or stubbing at the point of contact, which would actually increase mating forces. Additionally, we add safe push points, ensuring that there's no sharp edges, allowing for optimal leverage and comfort. Something we also find, important along these lines are audible and tactile feedback. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but when operators are mating connectors, it's really helpful to have that audible and tactile feedback. So when the connectors are fully engaged, the operators can hear those audible clicks and they can feel confident knowing that those connections are secure and they can move right on to their next task. We've talked about polarization and keying being very helpful. And then we also have contact within the housings, which allows for movement within contacts for improved mating and reduces stubbing as well. So by combining optimized connector design best practices in the workplace, assembly personnel can perform tasks more efficiently and effectively, which can improve worker safety and morale, which we know we can help reduce employee turnover and lead to fewer errors.
Yeah, that sounds great. It also reminds me, you mentioned audible feedback being helpful to human operators, which 100% it would be. I remember seeing a presentation at a conference recently where a company was using AI and microphones to listen for that audible click of a connector and realize that it was done correctly and then provide an indicator back in a noisy environment, like you mentioned before, in a factory where it may be hard to hear that audible sound.
Right, good point. That is something we talk about is, in the noisy manufacturing floor, could they hear it? But you do have that tactile feeling, and that we talked about the TPA, the terminal position assurance, where they might not hear the click of the terminal, but that's where the TPA comes in, and you push that down, and that ensures. So I think we have several layers to consider all these factors because we know the different environments could bring extra challenges with noisiness. So I think, we've covered those different scenarios as well.
Yeah, and I would assume that if somebody is interested in these kind of connectors and getting some guidance, reaching out to Molex and explaining to you guys what their environment is, what problem they're trying to solve, that you could help point them in the right direction for selecting the right connectors.
Absolutely. We often visit customers and see their environments, so we're very familiar with their working conditions and how we could help provide them a solution that would, fit that environment accordingly.
Can you give us some real world examples of where these colored mechanical keyed connectors are being used today?
Absolutely. So a few examples that connectors, for instance, in home appliance within the Molex portfolio include these signal and low to mid power connector offerings. These all have a targeted lower mating force offering. This is just becoming increasingly more important, again, due to those ergonomic requirements. So what we're looking at here are a series of connectors, NanoFit, MicroFit Plus, and UltraFit, for instance, at the top here. And what we're zeroing in on are these reduced contact mating forces. And this is important. Our customers are telling us, hey, you've got to keep those mating forces down. Our operators are mating and unmating so many times, and whether it's an OSHA requirement or just based on the requirements of their operators, we have to pay attention to this. So that's what we're showing here are just what these connector families have for their mating forces and how we're really taking care of any families we're releasing, in the future, making sure that we're paying detailed attention to those mating forces, knowing how important it is with the focus on ergonomics, operator safety, efficiencies. So yeah, this is a really important topic for us, and we are watching those details very closely.
Yeah, that's excellent. Elena, as we approach the end of our tech chat, do you have any final takeaways you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I appreciate this conversation. We try to stay up on the latest trends, whatever our customers are working on, we're right alongside them and making sure our connectors are meeting the needs of the ever demanding markets. We're always here to support and designing alongside of our customers. So please reach out, check out Molex.com. We're always uploading the latest and greatest. we're never resting. And when it comes to releasing new products, making modifications, and we're always happy to increase our portfolio to keep up with the ever-growing demands of our customers.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Elena, for joining us on this tech chat sponsored by Mouser Electronics. It was great having you today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
And if you're looking to purchase any of these colored, mechanically keyed connectors or any other great Molex products, I would encourage you to head over to Mouser.com to thank them for supporting educational presentations like this one. And join us again next time on Tech Chat, where we chat with leading technical experts like Elena Duggar from world-leading innovators like Molex who are changing our world every day.